you echo certainly the feeling that many of us have in the United States, that there is a competition between sort of a degrading society and culture that has no God and no family and no nation versus one that does value family, community, nation, and God. And we're seeing that play out. And I would think I've done a lot of reading on pre-founding sort of religious sermons in the United States and in the 18th century before the Declaration. And it's clear that at that time in the United States, there were very extreme traditionalists and very extremely spiritual and religious people that came to the United States to have the freedom to express those religious ideas in their version of spirituality. And even to the extent that some of the settlers believed that they were founding a new Israel, they were Zionists, they were here to form a new grand kingdom. And America was founded, as far as I can interpret it, on a notion that there needs to be no intermediary between God and the people. Previous civilizations had the king between God and the people, or the church between God and the people. But here in the United States, I think that we were looking towards a direct connection to God as a continuation of the Reformation, perhaps. And to me, that creates a special sort of spirituality that may not have been seen elsewhere. Do you have any comments or thoughts on that element of American tradition?
So it's difficult to judge. To me, I have searched in the beginning of the Reformation, and it was a very interesting point that before the Reformation, there were a kind of criticism of Catholicism in Europe from precisely mystical point of view, as Wycliffe, as Reims mystics, as Eckhart, Suso, or Tauler. So, and they were they have had very huge impact on Luther and on Reformation. That was precisely demand to direct relations between man and God, outside, beyond all kind of intermediarity. So, and that was a kind of right aspect of Reformation. But trying to establish this direct link to God, and as long as I understand that the traditional collective identity of the church was split and destroyed, so the demand of the direct relation was very legitimate, and the criticism of degrading Catholicism was as well legitimate. But the result, above all with Calvinism and some other, there was much more devastating than creative. So that was the kind of balance inside of Protestantism. For example, I like very much Jacob Boehme and Gichtel, so Protestant mystics, and so some of aspects we really are very, very spiritual, interesting, but as well there were many forms of, in my opinion, of perversions of this Christian spiritual relation. But what you have said about individualism, very interesting, because from the point of mystical tradition, individual is the last stage, the external man, and there is internal man, and innermost man as well, that is hidden. And the individual can be good when he is linked to something that is supra-individual inside of him, not outside, inside. So there is a very deep dimension that secures to individuality the real value, the value of expression on something more, of the inner freedom. But when you cut this tie between individual and its core, its hidden center, so individuality loses this spiritual relation, and very vulnerable from this time, and it could to be turn into the individual, into individuality, divisibility. So, and in that moment when individual loses its sacred dimension, so it becomes opposite, and that is individual is good, individualism is bad, I think. So this kind of exterior individualism, and when we have today, so now because there is no inner support for a spiritual individuality, for family, for religion in the individualistic liberal society, the globalists, they play on that, and that's absence of the foundation, of the ground for this individuality, and they try to transform this individuality into the path, to cut it, and to make recombination. That is the post-humanism already. So individualism now is a kind of victim of post-humanism. Before, it could be regarded as a middle position between affirmation of the inner dignity of the inner man and external man. He was on the border, on the frontier. But when the center of the perversion, of the mystery of iniquity, has changed its position in front of the human personality, now it is outside. It is pure materialism, is techno science. It is the idea to transform individual in a pure program, in a pure algorithm. So that is artificial intelligence, that is cyber, and that will be the next logical stage of destruction of the humanity. Today they destroy the gender, they destroy the human belongingness to the sexes, to family, and tomorrow they will destroy the last stage of collective identity, the humanness. So they will defend post-human individual. So it will be not individual at all. So that is precisely in the center. So individualism, comparing with the full-scale tradition, it is not the value. It is it is something exterior, not important. But now it obtains more and more importance, because now the globalists are going to destroy individualism. So it is, as in case with early modernity of United States, it becomes our last fortress to defend. So because when we perceive that we are going to lose human individuality, so we understand that we need to fight to save it. But my idea, in order to fight individual, we need to save God. We need to reverse this atheist materialist version and to defend sacred tradition, where individual can have the real ground and the real help from the transcendence. Without transcendence, we could not accomplish our mission.
From my reading and from my discussions with Millerman, and in Fourth Political Theory, and you outline the fascism, communism, liberalism, and you reject elements from each and take some from each as well. My understanding is that in liberalism, your rejection is of the individual, of individualism, but you take from it a sense of freedom. And I was confused there, because here in America, we say freedom, first thing you think of is individual, right? Like my individual ability to be free and to do what I want. But if individualism is at once rejected, but I'm hearing you also say that we want to sort of defend the destruction of the individual from technology and from modernity. So I'm a little bit confused there. It seems to be, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but a little bit of a contradiction, because if I understood your pre-Trump positions on America and American liberalism is that it needs to be destroyed, right? That it's leading us to the abyss. But at the same time, now it feels like there's some element of a defense there for the individual. Could you help me understand that? Am I not understanding that exactly right? Or
so America is not the only society where we could speak. Fourth Political Theory is much more general. So it is not destined for American public. If Americans want to read it or publish or discuss or reject and debate, it's very nice, and I am open to that. But I consider liberalism as the process of destruction of collective identity. And collective identity is not only material summary of many individuals. I don't think that man is individual. I think the man is spiritual being. The man is the mystery, and individual is the external form of it. So when we recognize the sacred root of individual, we should defend precisely the man and the freedom, because I think that individual is could not be the subject of the real freedom. Real freedom is much more in the depth. So individual is a kind of external shape, and when we deny the internal essence, what that is the real subject, it should be a real subject of freedom, we pervert the meaning of freedom. And that exactly what has happened with liberalism. It started as defense of the freedom, and at the end, with the today new liberals, modern liberalism, with Democrats, it is total destruction of any kind of freedom. So you are obliged to be liberal. You are obliged to follow this liberal agenda. And if you decline, if you diverge, if you get one step outside, you are immediately targeted. You are deplatformed, cancelled, and demonized as Stalinist, Nazi, toxic masculinity, patriarchality, and so on. So but that is not something that is opposite, contrary to liberalism. It is the logical end. When you miss the subject, the real subject of the freedom, with this inner core, that was the image of God in us, that is free. But our individuality can be free and can be totally manipulated from outside. So I think that is not something taken for granted, the freedom. We should fight for that, affirming our inner dignity. And liberalism becomes more and more something quite opposite. So you should imitate the political elite of so-called progressists and follow their agenda letter to letter, and if you diverge, so immediately you are done. So that is a kind of manifestation of the real agenda of the liberalism, so of the individuality. So in my opinion, we need to put aside or deconstruct individual as in liberal political theory, but not in favor of class or communism or nation. We need to reaffirm completely new understanding of the human nature. And I find this redefinition in Heidegger, in his being there, Dasein. It is existential basis. So Dasein is neither individual nor collective, nor racial, nor ethnical. It is something other. It is located in the essence of the being of a human. So that is not easy to grasp it, and it demands some effort. And in order to construct for political theory, we should overcome all this metaphysical superstructure, individuality, class, society, or ethnos, or nationality, or state, because the real nature of the man is otherwise, is elsewhere. And to find it, to reaffirm that with some philosophical methodology, not basing on vague presumption, intuitions, and so on. We have some method, phenomenological method. We have Heideggerian method. We have as well traditionalism of Julius Evola, René Guénon, that affirms the inner man. So we need to say, first of all, inner man and not external man.